Today we tell the story of the end of one of the most wanted criminals in the world, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, the founder and boss of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. This is the full timeline of how the Mexican military tracked, confronted, and ultimately killed him in a mass Operation Tapalpa that changed the security landscape of Mexico forever. For years, Mexican and U.S. authorities were hunting El Mencho, but information from his close associates finally cracked the case. Intelligence agencies were monitoring one of his romantic partners, which led them to a remote hideout near the mountain town of Tapalpa, Jalisco. Although El Mencho was extremely cautious, this personal movement gave authorities the break they needed. Military analysts studied patterns, communications, and the movements of his network, zeroing in on his exact location. By the early hours of February 22, 2026, the Mexican Army Special Forces, backed by intelligence from the United States, were ready to strike. The operation was meticulously planned, bringing together Special Forces of the Mexican Army aircraft from the Mexican Air Force National Guard reaction units, ground surveillance teams. Their goal was to capture him alive, but everyone knew this could turn deadly. As night turned to dawn, elite forces surrounded the cabins where El Mencho was hiding with a small group of his bodyguards. Soldiers moved in by land and air, sealing off escape routes. At first light, they approached cautiously, aware that this could trigger a violent confrontation. Suddenly, El Mencho's gunmen opened fire. The clash was intense. Automatic weapons, explosions, and tactical maneuvers defined the first minutes of the assault. The gun battle lasted several minutes. 8 members of El Mencho's security team were killed on the spot, resisting the military assault to protect their leader. Amid the chaos, El Mencho and a couple of his guards tried to flee into the nearby woods. Soldiers followed, engaging them as they moved through rough terrain. Despite being wounded, El Mencho continued resisting until the confrontation ended. Medical and military personnel found El Mencho and his 2 bodyguards severely wounded. According to official records, he suffered multiple gunshot wounds in the chest, abdomen, and legs, caused by heavy weapon fire during the shootout. These injuries were confirmed by the formal death certificate. The injured men were placed into an Army helicopter for urgent medical evacuation. The original plan was to take them to a hospital, likely in Guadalajara, and then transfer them to Mexico City for treatment, a rare chance to bring him alive. Tragically for him, and definitively for the operation, El Mencho did not survive the helicopter flight. The wounds were too severe. Both he and his bodyguards died in transit as the helicopter crossed over the mountainous terrain. This moment marked the end of a nearly 4-decade criminal career that turned him into one of the most feared figures in global organized crime throughout Mexico. CJNG loyalists responded with violence. Roads were blocked, vehicles were set on fire, and chaos spread in several states as cartel factions reacted to the loss of their leader, President Claudia Sheinbaum, and Mexican authorities urged calm as security forces secured key areas. Meanwhile, the world watched as one of the most powerful cartel bosses in history met his final fate.
The CJNG literally unleashes hell. The cartel's protocol is clear: create the most total chaos to terrorize the government and paralyze the army's movements. In a few hours, over 85 narco blockades are registered in 20 different states. Fundamental cities like Guadalajara are completely paralyzed. Prisons are assaulted, including a violent prison break in Puerto Vallarta. Pharmacies and supermarkets are set on fire. the government finds itself forced to deploy a colossal force, over 10,000 troops in a few days to quell the riots, in a true and proper display of military force that cost the lives of dozens of National Guard agents and suspected criminals. The killing of El Mencho is without a doubt a monumental blow. But the bloody history of Mexican drug trafficking teaches a harsh lesson. When you cut the head off the snake, often others are born. We already saw it in 2016 with the definitive capture of precisely Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. At the time, it was the power vacuum left by the arrest of El Chapo that allowed El Mencho and his newly born Jalisco Cartel to expand like wildfire. Today, 10 years later, history risks repeating itself in reverse. The absence of an authoritarian figure like El Mencho will almost certainly trigger a ruthless war of internal succession. But now that the ghost has fallen, who will take his place at the head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel? The answer to this question is the real nightmare of the Mexican government. The natural blood successors, like his son Ruben, known as El Menchito, have already been neutralized for some time and extradited to maximum security prisons in the United States. This leaves the field open to his most ruthless lieutenants. On one side, there is Hugo Gonzalo Mendoza Gaitan, alias El Sapo, a brutal hitman known for having orchestrated the worst massacres of the cartel. On the other, there is the stepson of El Mencho, Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, nicknamed El 03, who commands the highly feared elite assault groups of the organization. Without the authoritarian and centralizing figure of Oseguera to maintain the balance, security experts are certain that the cartel will split. The real carnage that awaits Mexico in the coming weeks will not only be against the forces of the state, but a fierce, ruthless internal war between these bosses to conquer the crown and the billions of Jalisco. The fall of El Mencho is a strong symbol, but the empire built by him, made of weapons of war, ruthless control of the territory, and billions of dollars, fruit of smuggling, will not disappear overnight. We are facing a turning point for the history of Mexico and the global fight against drug trafficking. But according to you, will the death of El Mencho truly mark the end of the Jalisco Cartel? Or will it only give start to an even darker and more violent chapter? If you like this video on the fall of El Mencho, on my channel, you can find many other incredible stories, animated in 3D, made of power, geopolitics, and great international manhunts, like the incredible hunt for Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, where I show you the secret tunnels, the impossible escapes,